Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. The first story is about a customer who made it clear that loopholes are not good, and he paid for it. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You want pedantry? You'll get pedantry. The background. I work at a club. Think country club for the lower middle class that holds raffles and such games as incentives for people to choose us. Because of this, as well as a liquor license, we also hold a gambling license. Chuck is an elderly member of the club and has been coming here for years. He has a little clout and is a recognized face. Starting a couple of weeks ago, Chuck began being very annoyed that with a certain raffle-type game that we run, our random number generator will occasionally produce the same number twice in a row. After all, it's random. He asked us to check the rules and see if it was okay. Side note, the branch of government that monitors gambling and gambling licenses in New Zealand is called the Department of Internal Affairs, or DIA. I personally went to the DIA website and trawled through all the rules relevant to this type of gambling, and I found nothing. I told Chuck as much and thought that would be the end of it. Of course not. To make a long story short, Chuck went to the DIA himself and found someone who agreed with him. We got an email telling us to stop, citing a rule that wasn't on the website. The rule doesn't explicitly state that we can't have the same number twice in a row. It's his interpretation of these rules that he's forcing us to comply with. Okay, fine, we won't argue. This is the guy who renews our gambling license. Chuck wins. Of course he doesn't. See, Chuck's favorite drink is a quadruple whiskey on the rocks. In New Zealand, the largest drink you can serve is a double. Quadruples just aren't allowed. He gets around this by ordering a double whiskey on the rocks and a double whiskey shot. He then pours the shot into the other glass and happily takes his quadruple away. Technically legal, but by a certain interpretation of the law, not okay. Chuck will never have his favorite drink again. And he doesn't get to complain because he's been very clear that loopholes aren't okay. What a jerk. And our last story. If you want to run your business into the ground, I'll happily help you. So a few years ago, I worked at a popular fast food chain. I just moved to a new town with my family and applied for my first job. Luckily for me, my boss was willing to give me a chance after running late to an interview or two because I just started driving on top of being new to the area. Now, this is a very small, old, literally falling apart store in a college town. Everything is outdated. At first, things were pretty great. My boss, we shall call him Mr. T, was a little difficult to get along with sometimes because he was getting older and most of the employees were incompetent, some drug addicts, some thieves, and some just plainly bad people. A few months go by, I'm getting promotions, registered, a window to grill, and regular raises. But more importantly, I'm making friends. Some friends that are basically family to me now. There's about 25 employees in total, and although sometimes we don't get along during the shift, we all usually partied some way or another on the weekends. After a while, I become good friends with the supervisors. So time goes by. All of a sudden, I've been there a year. I'm now a supervisor. Becoming a supervisor is sort of a big deal because Mr. T asks the other supervisors if they think you'd be a good fit and really respects their opinion because he's a good boss and he knows that they see a part of the employees he doesn't. With that being said, understand that the employees are kind of crappy, but the supervisors are all very competent. Some would even say overqualified. They may not like the job, but they have pride in their work ethic to do it well. I soon learned that the supervisors were the inner circle. They were all very close because, one, they'd all been there for a few years, and two, they were all good human beings. They were also basically the reason the store was still running. So like I said, things were pretty cool. However, Mr. T's daughter worked there. She was in her late 30s, about 5'8", maybe 130 pounds, pretty small woman, but damn, she made life hell for us sometimes. Some days she'd be fine all day, other days she was a nightmare. She had the title of assistant manager but did jack crap, worked for maybe 6 hours whenever she saw fit because she made the schedule. She'd chew out employees for trivial mistakes, get in exceptionally loud arguments with Mr. T, regardless of if the store was empty or packed shoulder to shoulder, purposefully schedule people in a way that she knew would make people upset, and worst of all, make wild accusations about the supervisors doing things to hurt the business, stealing. We would later learn she had a lot of mental health problems, so that's probably why she was so irritable at work. After a year of me putting up with her, years for the other supervisors, we finally had enough. Now, we didn't want to do anything drastic because we actually liked Mr. T. He was a good man. He'd owned that little store for so long. As I matured, I realized the reason we had so many problematic employees, why he probably hired me, a 15-year-old high school kid who was late to both interviews and made it known I had no work experience, was because he believed in people. He wanted to help somehow and give these people chances to get their lives on track. We didn't want to drive a wedge between him and his daughter, but something had to be done. So we had a supervisor meeting and tried to help while also trying to push her out. We offered to take many of her daily tasks to ease her workload, which was basically nothing, so that she wasn't as stressed at work and therefore stressing us out. The most important of these tasks was making the schedule. 2 years. This is where the revenge begins. Mr. T calls a meeting. He's selling the restaurant to a local guy that owns another store of the same fast food chain in the same town. The deal will be finalized at the end of the month. This was all rather sudden. We were all a little heartbroken, but knew he needed to let the work and stress go. But he assured us that the guy buying the place gave him his word there would be no roster or pay changes. The guy was pretty sleazy, but he at least held up to it. We'll now refer to him as Sleazy McSleazyface, SM for short. So now Mr. T is out. SM owns the store, but he's running his main store on the other side of town, which is a lot nicer than ours. So he appoints a manager for our store to run things for him. Nice guy, NG. The guy's pretty cool, way too nice, a big pushover, and just generally doesn't know how to run a business. He used to be assistant manager at the other location, but never had to make the hard decisions. He never did anything to wrong me, but I took advantage of him being a pushover. The reason I say this is because it was upsetting to me knowing that I could get away with stuff if I wanted to. There was no structure. Well, at first, everything's cool. Some of the supervisors that have been there a while start leaving, and I eventually become head supervisor and start making the schedule. Everyone basically is looking for a way out, but nothing serious yet. Now that Mr. T's gone, I make my first order of business to get his daughter out of the store. I start hiding her pens, putting things where they don't belong, basically doing everything I can to make her hate this place. Mind you, this is before I knew of her mental health issues. I'm not that cold-hearted. She eventually quits. Revenge within revenge here. Now, I put up with working there for years because it wasn't too bad, but now that management changed, I began to resent the place. Supervisors and general workforce were being worked thin. The place is becoming more of a mess and falling apart. Quality of service is terrible. SM was trying to pinch every penny from that place, but he did it all through NG. SM would show up every couple days to check on things. He would bash NG in front of employees and customers. He'd talk crap on the employees to the supervisors, thinking that we were all just on his team because we were close with the last owner. People started quitting, so he sent people from the other store to work at our location. They would tell me stories about him hitting on the young female employees, how he would do drugs with ex-employees and talk crap about his stores with them, and rumors of him cheating on his wife. He was making it hell for us to work there and trying to make it look like it was NG's fault. The supervisors knew the truth, though. Edit. So right about here is where all of that job searching the employees were doing that I mentioned earlier really got serious. I'd say approximately 25% already had interviews lined up. So one night, roughly 4 months after management had changed, I came to work and something just snapped. I was done with the place. My first job in what used to be a cozy little hole in the wall was now full of resent. I put my 3 weeks in. 3 weeks? I wonder why. And talked the rest of the supervisors into quitting with me. All but one followed suit. Now, the reason I put in 3 weeks instead of 2 was one reason. See what I did there? I wanted to make sure the place was ran into the ground when I left, and I knew I could have put in a 52-week notice and NG would have accepted it. NG never talked to me again, and I don't blame him, but there was a deep-seated hate in me for what SM had ruined. Some of the other supervisors left immediately, some did 2 weeks, which would leave me a week of being the only supervisor to shamelessly sabotage the place. So it began. I heard that supervisors were going to come from the other store to fill our places. That wasn't going to help because the other supervisors were the polar opposite of us, lazy, terrible people. All of a sudden, the storage sheds and freezers and coolers are in complete disarray because the employees never put stuff where it belonged, and yours truly was stocking things completely out of order to facilitate the chaos. Customers began to complain about the food quality. Guess no one was taking the time to properly clean the equipment. Oh no, the warehouse has accidentally shipped us too much stuff. Guess we got to send it back. Oh, you sent it back already? Damn, it was just a mistake on the inventory sheet. We needed that. And so it continued. I made sure I didn't break any laws, and I made it hell for the people working there, but it was all because SM thought he could treat us employees like lifeless robots and blame it on NG. Part of me feels bad for it, but I wasn't close enough with the other employees for it to really affect me. And on the final week, he asked that I teach one of his employees how to do the schedule. I called in sick every time I was supposed to train them, but I promised him I'd give him the schedule for the next week on the day I left. I never made it, and I deleted all the resources to make the schedule and copies of the schedule from the store computer. But I knew they had a log of all the dates and times employees were there that I couldn't delete because it'd be a little on the illegal side. All the employee preferences of I'd like to work on this day but not this one, and all the request off slips somehow got lost in it all. Whoops. And the schedule was supposed to be posted my last day for the following week. Whoops. I visited this year and the place is still open, but it's almost exclusively run by SM and a handful of other employees. SM's wife divorced him apparently, and his other store is closed. I don't know why it is, but it's a Hardee's now with what I assume is a new owner. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.